Well, the question is posed as to why people go through changes, if they should go through changes, why they go through changes, why are there any changes at all? Firstly, for who? It's always for who. And because things appear that way, it is for who. So then it's for who's attached to or identified with changes and appearances of changes. In the light of this kind of recognition that one is suffering changes, afraid of changes, experiencing insecurity and fear relative to changes, then we have the comment, well, what is the mentor about? So, why a mentor? What can the mentor do for me? Well, the mentor is not here to do anything for anybody's me, or for the you as ego, yourself. The mentor is here to demonstrate that there are other levels of consciousness, other levels of reality, that are less subject to the changes and suffering and the gain and loss mechanism related to changes that most people suffer. Loss of life, loss of property, loss of situation, status, and so on. Loss of prestige and image, loss of your relationships, and so on. Loss of family. So here the Master functions as a recognition and realization of planes of consciousness that accessed and connected with or participated in are able to bring you outside of that whole field or roller coaster ride of the appearances that are changes, the changes of appearances, and experiencing the illusion of change, experiencing suffering, which is suffering changes. Suffering changes relative to the self, thought, and mind. And so, again, reflecting on the idea of the Master as mentor, we have the point. One is living from another level of reality, present, involved in the whole mess, but not suffering the mess. So that becomes then a possibility for whoever's related to this experience or reality of being in the spirit of the Master, being in the presence of the Master, who lives as a form of grace or as a form of fire that makes it obvious to those who can perceive it as such that this life is not worth suffering. It is worth living, but not worth dying for from the point of view of suffering. It is worth living as from the point of view of enlightenment or free happiness and love wisdom. To be born into the body, in the case of men as well as women, but now the question is posed by the man or the penis, would say, well, you have to realize what that is for. If it appears, then it's symbolic and not necessarily known in truth. What is the function of it? So what does it mean in terms of consciousness? And so that to be subject to the penis, in terms of what it appears to be used for, in terms of its rise and fall, is more the same. Fullness and emptiness, happiness and unhappiness. We're not here to be man alone. We're here to be spirit. And that's something that one has to be brought to recognize is the truth of life. Once they recognize that they have a sleeping self, an unconscious self or center or being, which is just as much a part that is what we are, not so much who we are, but what we are as humans. We sleep, we awaken, and we start to understand the implications of that in terms of consciousness awareness. And we can say to ourselves, maybe there's more to this than I'm suffering and experiencing. Where does this experience come from and why? Why is it here? Why am I experiencing it? Well, you're born to experience that. And that is what is meant by the inheritance of the river of blood, or what the curse of culturing can be for some. It's not what you want to be, but it's what your body is. It's what your emotions are. It's what your mind is. Untrained, undisciplined, and impure as such. Not clear as to its highest or purest nature. See? So here, in the case of those who come to visit, to see what's going on, although there's conversation, conversation is an aspect of what is really being communicated. And that should be presence of intelligence, awareness, consciousness awareness. Okay? The presence of that which is aware or is awake as unchangingness, here-ness, now-ness. And these perceptions, these ideas, are born of the experience of being now-ness, being here-ness, being itself. Radiant, clear, silent, pure being. That's also what we are, as well as being geniuses, human geniuses for suffering, chaos and destruction, complication of, say, experience, complication of understanding, complication of world, experience, making things worse by way of complicating things as a result of a lack of seeing clearly what it is that one needs to see and do and work from as true nature, as opposed to just human man, which left to itself is going to bring you to anything but enlightened being, for the most part. To be a man is to suffer manhood. To go beyond manhood as such is to potentially awaken into realization of one's true spiritual nature, spirithood. That's the purpose for coming here, to this earth, to this world, is to come to terms with the fact that we are not just flesh, we are light. And as light, we are much freer of the changes of the body. We are light, and only light. So, being preoccupied with peeps is a body ID. See, that is part of the dilemma of recognizing that you are self and believing that that's all you are, or the truth of what you are. And that's partially the case, but not the total reality itself. There's also the fact that you are not self. You are without self. You are just body, just being. No self. No self, no other. But we have to go beyond the concepts of self and other, to be free of self and other. And so, relating to the teacher or the master, who is realization of being beyond self and other, we come to terms with the perception or the recognition that if the master is living as that detachment or presence of grace and peacefulness, why can't I do that? Why can't it be done by others? And it can be done, because the master is living as what is true. That is, the master's norm is to be true, free, capable of life, but not limited to programs relative to being a human as different from living life as it is. Being a man as distinctly different from being a free spirit intelligence. being a man according to what standards? Who? Friends? Others? Peeps? Authorities? Who? What? So the point is, see the light in the Master that you recognize as true for you. In that way you're able to identify with or open to or access that which is changeless, true, and real for you. Beyond suffering, beyond pain, beyond concern, beyond conflict, doubt, confusion, worry, and fear, all of which are symptomatic of being too much the man, the human, who suffers the delusion of self as distinct from others, self-otherness programs. Which are what everyone is made to or allowed to believe, and even encouraged to believe is the truth. In the process of transcending that duality, one can start to feel, through practice, being a part of, which one is, but not living as such, the entire event of the universe and beyond. Being awareness and beyond. See? Which is what is. It's all it is. Being capable of definition and being beyond defining anything. Being capable of relations, but being beyond relations as such. And thus participating in relationlessness awareness. Selflessness awareness. Mindlessness awareness. Thoughtlessness awareness. Worldlessness awareness. And certainly fearlessness awareness. So you are fearlessness. It's what heart means. Courage, fearlessness. Fire. You are fire. You are spirit, in truth, at heart. In fact. And thus much more than just human, relative to culturing, say, or a man relative to sexist programming. Don't be yourself. Be heartful.